they really want to help people, because that's the folks that I tend to deal with, are people whose hearts are huge and want to make a difference in the world. They want to help, but they don't want to be pushy, aggressive, and salesy. And the ask is what stumbles them, trips them up.
Martians landed?
Yes.
Wearing Prada suits?
Yes.
Drinking Henry Seltzer?
Yes.
Chewing juicy fruit?
Yes, and?
Your branding here?
Yes, brand.
Your message here?
Yes, and?
A verse about?
Yes.
Your product here?
Yes.
I'm Hirsch Redmond.
Yes, and?
I'm a message therapist.
Yes.
And I have a podcast.
Yes, brand.
That's right, that's it.
Yes.
We'll help you fix the world.
Yes.
Or your bottom line.
All right.
Your bottom line.
Get it. I get it. Welcome to the Yes Brand Podcast.
In the hot seat today on Yes Brand is Nancy Zare, the sales whisperer. That's right. And you will find out why. But first, let me tell you a little bit about my friend Nancy Zare. Nancy is the creator of the Alike Ability System. She has a Ph.D. She shows professional business owners how to turn 50% of their prospects into clients. So that's a good thing. She earned her master's and doctorate from Boston College. She's authored 7 books, including an Amazon international bestseller. And Nancy is also the co-host of Know and Sell Pointers, which we host together every Tuesday at noon Eastern on LinkedIn. And we are about to launch our Know and Sell Insiders community. And with that, I welcome Nancy Zare.
Thank you, Hirsch Rappoon. So excited to talk with you, because he's kept me away from this podcast for months.
Well, actually, we've only now at this point really caught up. I think sometimes, as you know, we can bite off a little more than we can chew. I had 3 podcasts going at one time. I had my Truth Tastes Funny podcast, I had the Yes Brand podcast, and then I had this Brand Voice Runway podcast, which I turned into a series within Yes Brand. So it worked out to much better to just do it as a limited series with 7 and 8 figure brand owners, and just have it work that way, because juggling 3 and then trying to get everything out was very challenging. So
It is.
but it is.
I'm tipping my hat to you.
Yes, it is an honor to have you here. Those who are listening and are not seeing your book, Compelling Selling, behind you. Now, talk a little bit, Nancy, because I think it will help people understand a little bit about the Alike Ability concept.
It came about because of the fact that I don't want to be pushy, aggressive, or salesy. I want the prospect to relax, feel comfortable, and say to themselves, you get me, we're alike. Because when people feel we're alike, that's when the trust builds, the sales resistance drops away, and it opens the door to doing business together. Hence, that is the brand of Alikeability. Help people feel comfortable and make more sales.
Yeah, and we connect on that level. You mentioned Nancy read an advanced copy of my upcoming book, Selling the Truth. I really appreciate you reading it, Nancy. And one of the things that struck you was a passage where I mentioned not always struggling with sales. I have always struggled with the idea of even being a salesperson or selling something, because I remember being, I don't know what I was, 11 years old, and a salesman selling timeshares or insurance or something coming to my house, and my parents being very gracious and, giving him coffee, and like the way it used to be in the old days when people come over to your house and sell you something and sit down. But I picked up on a little bit of the discomfort that he had, a little bit of the knowledge that my parents had, that they weren't going to buy anything, that they couldn't afford to buy anything. And then that I somehow, and then left, I said, there goes that a-hole or whatever. I said something really inappropriate. And my mother was like, that isn't nice at all, but that feeling that I had that it was wrong to sell things to people is just, what do you make of that psychology? That's obviously a part of why you started a likability, but where does it come from?
As you were describing yourself, I said, that's my ideal prospect. It's that person who doesn't identify as a salesperson. They're professionally, occupationally well trained. They're an expert in their field, but they don't think of themselves as a salesperson. And when it comes to the act of selling, they feel a bit uneasy about it. They really want to help people, because that's the folks that I tend to deal with, are people whose hearts are huge and want to make a difference in the world. They want to help, but they don't want to be pushy, aggressive, and salesy. And the ask is what stumbles them, trips them up, and why they feel uncomfortable in the sales process. They don't mind sharing. They don't mind educating. They don't mind being helpful. I mean, they will give advice and they will give away a lot of what they know, but to ask equals somehow something monetary. And as soon as that comes into play, that's when my ideal prospect says, nah, not for me. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's cut to the promise, the idea, honestly, the idea that that you can help people, work with the people they want to work with and close 50% of their sales calls. And if people, a lot of my audience are entrepreneurs, service providers, they know that it's not easy to close a sale, and that you need a lot of prospects and a lot of conversations in order to, winnow that down to the people you're actually going to work with. What is your system, and what can you share about how to get to a very significant close rate like that?
There are 5 steps in the likability system. But obviously, we're not going to cover all 5 of them. But the first step is probably the most significant. It's being able to identify 4 different buying styles, personality styles. And when you can identify your prospect's buying style, now you are at an advantage, because you know what they value, you know what are the important elements that will go into their decision, and you also know approximately how many touch points, how many contacts they're going to need before they're able to say yes, or even make a decision one way or another. And because you have all this knowledge in place ahead of time, that makes that first sales conversation easy peasy. It isn't about selling. It is about the process of developing the relationship that will lead to their ability to make a decision. You may or may not be the right choice. And when you enter that relationship with that person, with that knowledge of who they are as a personality style, but also that it isn't about selling them, but about inquiring and supporting and being present with them to give them what they need to make a decision, it just removes that nasty thought about it's a transaction.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've talked about this, where selling, and I've had people say, okay, I would love to speak with you, but don't sell me anything. Don't sell me anything. And my reaction is, selling is something that happens way, way down the line. And it only happens if you're buying something. So if you're not buying anything, I'm not selling anything.
Amen.
You know, and I'm certainly not in the business we're in. I'm not in a general store where you come in to buy a keychain. I'm building a relationship with you that's hopefully going to be ongoing. So, there's a lot of stuff that has to happen before the selling part kicks in, you know.
It's
Um,
so true. And at any given time, and you may be familiar with these statistics, It comes from Chet Holmes, and he spoke to, I don't know how many hundreds of audiences. And he would ask, who's here to buy? And only 2 to 3% at any given time have come to, are at a position where they have done enough research, they have enough knowledge about their problem, they know what solution they're looking for, and hence they're buying. The other 97% are not in that space.
Right.
And hence you've got to develop the relationship. And he was a big believer about you want to deal with the 97% rather than the 3%. The 3% will stick up their hand, they'll ask you, they'll, bang on your door because they're ready. The 97% need to cultivate a relationship with you
Right.
before they can do business with you.
Right. They they need to know, like, and trust. And tell us a little bit about these personality types. And and it's interesting because I think a lot of us don't think about the buyer or prospect as having so many divergent types. We think they're a dentist. Let's say we work with dentists. We think either they're a dentist or they're not a dentist. We're not thinking in terms of their personality and their psychology. So share a little of that.
Right. So there are over 200 personality systems in play. And it started in the era of Hippocrates when he said that there were 4 temperaments. And he actually treated people medically and psychologically based on these temperaments. Well, over time, like I said, they've morphed into many different names, and we've given them animal names and fish and birds and dogs, and there are just normal names, and then there's colors. Well, after research, not on my own, we've discovered that these 4 styles can be classified according to the number of touch points they need before they can make up their mind. So we've given them numbers 2, 4, 6, and 8. So buyer number 2 makes up their mind in only 1 or 2 touch points, usually just 1. Very fast, decisive, want it off their plate. That is that 3% that is ready to go. But even among buyer number 2, not all of them are the 3%ers, right? Some of them are still just beginning. Then there's buyer number 4. They're going to take 2 or 3 touch points. How do I get the number 4? Is because they need 1 additional touch point, Hirsch, after they've said yes. They get cold feet. They go home and they ruminate, they think about it, and they wonder, was it a transaction or was this a relationship? Was this genuine or was this just to get my money? And this is the reason they get cold feet and buyer's remorse. So you need additional touch point after they've said yes. So that's why I've given them the number 4. Then we have the number 6. They take 5, 6, 7 touch points, 6 on average. This is what I consider almost the average buyer, because 70% of sales are made around the 6th or 7th touch point. So this is kind of commonplace for most people, to take time to vet you, to look at your references, read up on testimonials, 5-star reviews, whatever, okay?
Also be exposed to our content. That's another reason why we create content on this ongoing basis. It creates another touch point for the prospect.
It does. And then the number 8 buyer, turn the 8 on its side. It's the symbol for infinity. So this is the person who starts with 8, and they can go forever. And you're smiling, as many of us are, because we've talked to people like this who, I have to think about it. And by the way, for the number 8 buyer, that is actually a buying signal. It is not an objection. It's not a sense of, I don't want to work with you. We need to educate them because they want to think about it. And of course, we want to feed them the right information to help them think it through and come to a conclusion.
Now, the $1 million question is, how do we know what type each person is? I mean, we're not given a ton of exposure to them. They may have 5, 6, 7, 8 touch points, but we actually, in the beginning, we're kind of going in cold. How do we know how to read these types?
Well, as you mentioned at the outset, I'm called the Sales Whisperer. Initially, I was given the title the LinkedIn Whisperer. because of a skill that I teach, or I can do it for you. In fact, I've even done it for you, Hirsch, if you
Yes,
recall,
yes, you have.
some time ago. I can look up people on LinkedIn or their website or some other place on the web. And if there's a picture and if there are words that they've written, those photos and those words indicate their style. So before you even met, you can walk into that meeting with a sense of, they're the 2, 4, 6, or 8. Now, if it's the 2, remember, this is the person who needs only 1 or 2 touch points. You better ask for the sale now, today, because this is a person who's ready to buy, chances are. Whereas the 4, 6, and 8, I promise you, this is not a person who's buying today. And so rather than feel like, oh, I lost it, I didn't, no, it's about the relationship. So what do you need to do to develop that relationship? Well, it varies, but this is how you tell them apart. Basically, their photo and the words they use. So if there's some way that we can look them up on the web, or if you have exchanged messages with them, emails or text messages, guess what? We know their style.
And I have spoken to my share of coaches, business coaches, and worked with a number of them. And one piece of advice or factoid that I've been told is there is no reason why you cannot close on the initial discovery call if you do it properly. And if you don't call, there's only 2 reasons why you wouldn't close if you don't close. One would be that you did something wrong or you failed to get certain answers that you needed. The other is that they were simply not a good fit, in which case they were never going to close. But there's no reason why you can't resolve it on the call. And you're saying that's a little bit of an overreach, am I right?
Yeah, I appreciate. I've been given that advice. I have probably been coached by similar people and come across similar material. But again, the truth is that 97% are not ready to buy today. Now, if you have done your job over time of developing a relationship, and you alluded to it a moment ago when you said something about, when we post, it's a way to continue to develop a
Right,
relationship.
right.
Well, we don't know how many times our prospect has seen our material on the web, how many times they have reflected on it, or maybe they've actually gone to another event or meeting where your name came up and they heard somebody say something. In other words, there have been a lot of touch points behind the scenes. And so when we're now in front of them, indeed, it may be the right time to ask.
Yeah.
Especially many of these folks who advocate for that, one call close, usually they have done something to be in front of that prospect for a considerable time period. There's been a presentation, a challenge, a webinar, a workshop whereby they've had, consistent exposure.
That's very true, Nancy. And and I've had situations where I'm speaking to someone and one of the first things they say, "Oh, I saw your video on such and such, and I really loved this about it." And I know at that moment that this person has had more exposure than another person. So I know that regardless of their personality type, that they are that much closer. Not just because they liked what they saw, but because it represents at least 1 or 2, probably at least 2 touch points that they have had. So in addition to whatever referral they might have received, or in addition to how they found me, let's say, they've now brought themselves even closer
Yeah.
to
And
to working together.
And this underscores for each of you listening the importance of being active on some level with your community, with prospects. And whether that activity is getting an email list and nurturing them through your, uh, periodic messages, whether it's posting on a social media channel, maybe more than one. Again, your people, even if it's writing a book and promoting the book, uh, there has to be some way, and each of you, as you're thinking about it, what are you better at doing? Are you better at writing? Are you better at speaking? Are you better at demonstrating? Think of what it is that you excel in, and then think of the best platform, medium, whereby you can present yourself, because you need to be visible before anyone can buy you.
Yeah. Yeah. The psychology behind content is so important and so valuable. I want to go a little bit deeper and a little more into another thing that we share, which is working with the soulful movers, people who measure their next figure in, sometimes, of course, in business, but quite often in impact. Uh, Talk a little bit about why you're drawn to these people and vice versa.
Hey, Hirsch, we teach what we need to learn. So, I think we're both drawn to that person because we are that person. I want to make a difference in the world. I'm not money motivated, although obviously I want to be able to sustain a good living and be able to give away money and support charitable activities. And that is very deep within my, neshama, my soul here. So yes, I'm that kind of person. I'm also that kind of person who, after getting a PhD, looked around and said, nobody taught me how to market and sell myself. So in the time it took me to go and get my master's and then a doctorate, and even though I had all these skills of how I was going to help people, and I have to tell you, I'm in an occupation that by and large, there are a lot of people who go into private practice. The college I went to, and I think it's very typical of many of the universities out there, they don't teach us what to do to build a private practice, to have a viable business. And a few of us mavericks, went out and experimented, etc. Eventually, that's what happened to me. I came across the Platinum Rule. And the Platinum Rule is a book, but I first heard Tony Alessandro, who's one of the authors, speak on it. And it's about the fact that we want to treat other people the way they want to be treated. And that so resonated with me because it's about helping others and making a difference and being present for the other person rather than me, 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 me. And when I put that into practice, I quadrupled sales, and I was doing sales of mental health services in the workplace. So, it was pretty hefty for me to have had a significant increase. And I went on to start my business so I could share that with others.
It's a wonderful way to express and to capsulize, your motivations. That leads us to the final topic that I want to cover, which is this Know and Sell Insiders community. Obviously, it's something that we've been talking about on our LinkedIn show for a couple months now. We've been kind of alluding to it. We've been looking at the best way to do it. But it definitely is driven by this shared desire to have people be able to access the support and information that we have to share without necessarily getting involved in our larger programs and the higher ticket programs. What are you at liberty to share about the Know and Sell Insiders community?
Well, two brains are better than one. And in my opinion, marketing and sales, although they have separate names, are really the same function. It's a continuum. And marketing is usually what's seen as helping to create visibility and put people in what's called the sales funnel or the pipeline. And somewhere in the middle, we nurture those relationships. And then as they get closer to becoming a customer, somehow that's when the sale takes place, right? You ask them, would you like to work with me? You invite them, etc. And then now they are your client, your customer. So I see it as a continuum, and you and I we do share values in common in many, many ways. And so hence we both have this commitment to help people not just see this as piecemeal and tackle it in one part at a time, but as the continuum, so that, yes, my message has to be consistent throughout the process. It doesn't start off here just to nab people and get them interested, but then once they're ready to buy, it's a totally different message. No, it has to be the same. So the message is important, but so is the tactics, which to me is about developing a relationship, knowing the personality style of your buyer, and altering your message to suit the buyer.
Yeah, the double braining aspect, and I often call it sales and messaging, not just sales and marketing. But either way, this continuum that you allude to is why I'm super excited about this community. It truly is unlike anything that, and as I mentioned, I'm where I'm at because of the communities I joined, because of the coaches I've worked with, even when the outcome wasn't what I expected or wanted in that moment. Every single one of the experiences I've had has propelled me to another plateau. And this is just very unique in the combination of access to what you and I each do.
Right.
And, it humbles me in a way because, I have this reverence for sales, and I have looked at that for many years as being apart from me, something that happened almost by accident, or if someone else did it. It never was something that I really did. And taking the reins and moving from my own messaging to the selling part and getting comfortable with that and moving into that, it's really gratifying to know that someone can come to us and get our input simultaneously in many ways, with our office hours that we'll be doing, and we'll have the ability for them to sit down with each of us independently and alternate weeks where they are availing themselves of different things, and then one another, and then being able to take advantage of the community, the mutually supportive element, the accountability, all of those things. So I'm super excited about it, and I'm really grateful to be partnering in it with you. And in fact, it was probably fortuitous that it took a little bit longer for us to get our schedules aligned to do this interview, because the timing is really awesome, and is such that we're at a really important juncture. I do like to give my guests the last word, and often it is a kind of reflective piece of advice that you give. I don't know if it's possibly reflexive and reflective, but it's essentially, if you were talking to someone who had just gotten their Ph.D. or just gotten out of school and was looking at the landscape today and wanting to launch their own business, what would your advice be?
Well, as you know, we actually work, I think, with people who've already launched their business and are into it a year or two or more down the road, as opposed to the person just thinking or just starting.
Yes.
And that's because I think it takes a while, Hirsch, to realize that they need these skills. When you're out there, you're filled with that excitement and the passion of, oh, I have this body of information, this experience to share with people. And it isn't until you get bloodied a few times and knock your head against a wall, right? I see the brick wall there, that you say to yourself, I need some help. And again, you asked me earlier, and I want to kind of revisit this a little bit about closing 50%. You see, if you don't know someone's buying style, personality style, and you treat all buyers like they're the same thing, or worse, you project your style onto them, And that's very, very common. We think that the other person is going to make a buying decision using our criteria. Well, so then we present our criteria. Well, this is where you get into trouble. If instead of playing the numbers game, let's fill that funnel with a gazillion people and maybe a few will trickle out, fill them with the right number buyer. Is it the 2, the 4, the 6, the 8? And now, not you know how to nurture them, you know their time frame, you know their values, you know what makes them tick, you know what are the key words and the concepts that will enter their spirit, and they'll say to themselves, you get me, we're alike, I want to do business with you. And that's the reason, Hirsch, that my clients and anyone who's listening to me, you can close 50% or more of your prospects. And because you're able to be so successful, now you get to pick and choose who are you going to work with, because you don't have to work with everyone. And when you first start out, or even if you're in business a while, that sense of, oh, I need somebody, the bills are coming due, da, 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 da. Well, when you're needy, you don't do a good job of selling. So it's so important that you are talking to the right people and that you're able to message them in the right way. Hence, that's why I believe that you can close 50% and choose who you're going to work with.
All right.
If you liked the show,
Yes, and
it worked for you,
yes, then.
subscribe and leave a
Yes, friend.
5-star review.
Yes, friend.
Tell all your friends.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Did I make it clear?
Yes, friend.
Get your branding on
Yes.
before they're gone.